This story is called The Cloud. I'm reading from a book by Daryl Bailey called Dismantling the Fantasy, an invitation to the fullness of life. The Cloud. Once upon a time, a group of friends lay on a hillside watching a cloud. They'd become fascinated with its appearance while walking in the country. It was a marvelous cloud, massive and surging, one moment appearing to be a house, and the next a bevy of balloons. In turns, there were forests and cities, animals and people, coming and goings, no end of activity. As it so happened, an old man, a stranger, was wandering close by. When the group of friends saw him, they cried out in their excitement, "Old man, come join us! Come watch this cloud!" After hurried introductions and the shifting of bodies, he took his place within the group. The afternoon passed pleasantly as the cloud continued to surprise. There were soldiers at war and children at play. There were creatures of the wild, birds, mammals, and fish, as well as beasts of work and burden. There was a mother with her child, and there were many scenes of life: birth, death, sickness, youth, and old age. There were lovers and fighters, friends and enemies, and the interaction of groups and single, poignant portraits. Time wore on, the afternoon dwindled, and eventually the old man stood to leave. He thanked his new friends and made his goodbyes, but hesitated, looking at the gathering. "May I ask you a question?" "Of course," they replied in their various ways. "Were you at all concerned for those we saw this afternoon?" "Who?" they asked. "The figures we saw in the cloud. The soldiers, the animals, the children." The friends looked at each other, perplexed. One answered, "Old man, there were no people, no animals. There was only the cloud." The others nodded in agreement. "How do you know that?" "How do we know what?" "How do you know that there was only the cloud?" "Well, it's obvious. Anyone can see it." "See what?" "There was only the cloud. It's still there." "Oh, what about the forms we saw?" "There were no forms. There was only the cloud, and it has no particular form." "How do you know that?" "Just look. You can see it." "What do you see?" "There are no forms there." "How do you know that?" "Because they're always changing. No form is ever really there. Whatever form you think is always altering, rearranging in some way." "How do you know that?" "Well, just look. That's all you have to do." "And there are no soldiers, no animals, no children?" "No, it may have seemed like that, but there was only the cloud." "There were no soldiers deciding to fight, no lovers deciding to love?" "How could those false appearances decide to do anything? There was only the movement of the cloud." "So the cloud decides to move?" "No, the cloud does not decide to move. It has no form. It simply moves. That's its nature." "How do you know that?" "Have you ever seen a cloud that stopped changing? Every aspect of it's shifting in some way. It doesn't decide to do it. It's on automatic. The movement simply happens." "There were no people. There was no birth and death?" "Birth and death of what? There was only the cloud. It seems like many forms coming and going, but it's always only the unformed cloud." "And no one is deciding to do anything?" "No. The forms that appear to be there are not really there, because each one is altering in some way and eventually disappears. There is simply action or motion. The forms are not the reality. They are false appearances. There is only movement, a streaming that has no particular form." "But the lovers who moved closer together?" "There were no lovers, no soldiers, no animals. There is only the cloud." The old man pondered this slowly. There were no forms there, no decisions to act, no birth and death. That's right, said the friends, thinking they had finally gotten through to him. But how do you know for certain? Just watch. The forms that you see are changing all the time. They never stop. No particular form is ever really there. If you had to describe a cloud, you wouldn't say it looked like a horse or a soldier. That wouldn't give you a true sense of the cloud. A cloud is constantly changing. The appearance of form is not the reality. The altering is. That's the basic fact. There is no coming or going, no birth or death, no decisions being made, no matter how much it seems like it. There is only motion. Anyone can see that if they watch it long enough. The old man considered this carefully. You're absolutely certain. Yes, we're absolutely certain. And you can tell all of this from seeing this constant change, this motion, this dynamic. Yes. The old man contemplated this. May I ask another question? The friends remained silent, waiting. Are you actually people? What are you talking about? Of course we're people. But you're changing. What? Everything you are. Your bodies, thoughts, emotions, interests, urges, desires, capacities, decisions, focuses, ideas, activities. In fact, more than just you, all things that you know of. What about them? They're constantly changing. Yes, sighed the members of the group, they're changing. Do you change them? No, old man, they simply. The friends stood staring at him, their minds racing, exploding to find some other response. He gazed at them. They looked. He looked. For what seemed to be a very, very long time. Then he smiled, turned, and wandered away. Ba-na, ba-na, ba-na-na-na.
Hold on, I'm just. Do you hear me? You don't hear me. You do hear me. Okay.
Not yet.
So how can you answer if you don't hear me?
One of these buttons will do the trick, I'm sure.
We'll see in a minute.
That could be because I don't actually have the
Yeah,
right headphone in my ear right
it's
now. Yeah. Let's see.
one.
That works.
It's half.
All
I'll
right.
change my.
Now, yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, but I will change my setting in any way because I have the best. Now you should hear me much better, or not?
I can definitely hear you. So that's much
So
better.
now you will have to excuse me for 1 minute to to see when is my next thing, because as I'm working,
Sure.
and I will enjoy it, I don't want to offend anyone by not showing up to something. How did you enjoy yesterday?
Yeah, it was good times. It's an
I
well, it's an interesting sort of format and populate it. Interesting things happen, right?
I love talking to her. Hold on, I'll get the light out of your eyes. Is it this one? No, is it this one? So let's do. Ah, I know. I have an idea. I'll get you in on the mess. So this is one. See me? Yes. And this is Yeah, okay, good. Ah, you're looking at what books I have?
No, no, there's a group of kids passing outside. So,
Yes,
yeah,
so
yeah.
so let's talk.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk. What I'd like to do is start off with a little bit of a check-in, right? Um, I notice it seems a little strange in this context, but let's roll the dice and see what happens, right? The three basic tenets of the check-in are, who am I? What is it we want to explore in this space, and why is that topic meaningful or important? And then after that check-in, basically, I'll reflect what I appreciate out of what you bring in, and then I'll answer the same three questions, and you'll reflect what you appreciate and why what I brought in. And then we can just take a minute of silence to sort of land in the space and see what happens.
You're the boss. First question, who am I?
Yeah.
So first of all, the answer depends on the scope, right? So I can give you anything from my name and serial number in the army to saying I am the universe. So it's where on this scope are you asking from?
Yeah. That's a good question, right? So already we bring in the paradox of like the self versus identity, right? The self being infinite and the identity being this finite soundbite that we're looking for. Well, so I guess that brings into the question. So what's the sort of intention for this call and this space is this set of dialogues. So if you're, I know of you in our interactions on LinkedIn. I've played with you in a couple of the play events, but I don't really know you. I haven't had a one-on-one interaction with you
So
at any
I'll
point ever.
bounce back at you. What does it mean to know someone?
Yeah,
I'm not sure I know myself.
for
So,
sure.
so I'll start with the challenging answer. Okay, I am the universe
Cool.
in the sense of like what moves me is the Taoist mindset, the understanding that what I call me, and we can say what is I, what is me, yeah. But what I call me, what this mouth expresses as I, is a grain of sand in a huge thing. And it's just like you don't ask a cell in my body, who are you? And if the cell answers you something that says I'm a cell, it misses the point.
Hmm.
Okay, so my sense of being is that um, I am really the universe. Like I am me, and currently I am me and you, and this microphone, and the laptop, and the buildings outside, and anything that resonates with my bodily actions and voices now. Okay, so my form is 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 an arbitrary limit, but who I am is everything that is under my scope of influence, which is, anything. Like the distance from me to the politics in the US is not nothing, right?
Hmm.
I can, with some words on Facebook, move the politics in the US.
Especially on that cosmic scale, right?
Yeah, and so what I'm saying it's all just on the cosmic scale. And in this context, my physical being is minor. So like we can speak about what does it mean when someone dies, right? So when the body dies, it means nothing. What remains is all of the ripples of ideas and patterns of behavior or whatever that you left that are resonate in your children, in your friends, in your enemies, in whatever. And this is so the death of the body is doesn't have a lot of meaning. Like when I connected to this viewpoint, sometimes I would do an exercise, like I would be in the middle of the street, like I say, now at this moment, my two kids had a car accident and they're both dead. How does it feel? Okay, so it happens. No, I can let go of that. So does it answer enough for you? The first question.
Yeah, beautifully. Let's get big, huh?
So
And
what's the second
so,
one then?
yeah, what is it we want to explore in this space that we've created for ourselves?
So I don't know who's we. Again, we is I, right? For me, it's just a space for emergence. There's nothing specific to explore. It's to see, just like in the talk yesterday, to see what happens, to have a space that is open to whatever will come.
And what makes that meaningful or important to you?
Ula. Again, I don't understand the word meaningful. Everything is when I try to explain what is Taoism to someone who doesn't know, I say I'll explain it in two words: shit happens. Like nothing has meaning, right? I, I talked once to a Buddhist monk about the differences between Taoism and Buddhism, and what I realized is, at least from his point of view, is that Buddhism has meaning. Like a Buddhist will not kill a fly. For a Taoist, a dead fly and a fly that's alive bear the same meaning. So I don't know how to define meaning.
So maybe another term. So what makes the pursuit of exploration of what emerges? What is it that motivates or orients you towards that?
It's keeping alive, vibrating. Again, I don't know if you record this for some purposes, and we'll talk about your purposes. I don't know. I don't know if I should mention the talk we had yesterday as part of this context. But what really talked about yesterday is exactly this. It's the it's the chance to challenge the axioms of being. Okay, so and it can emerge anywhere. Like it emerges with the team that I just talked to about how they manage their daily stand up, and it emerges with people I coach. It can emerge with someone, like if I go to buy a croissant outside, whatever. So it's a chance to for me, like the purpose of my work is to increase a world alignment or harmony. Harmony, like, is a better word that I love more, but it's more, I don't know, like more new agey. So I prefer not to use it. Okay, like more like let's do meditation and whatever.
Right, it's a little
Um,
squishy, right?
so interactions with people who are not totally me, it brings these challenges into being and increases the chances of better understanding of different viewpoints.
Not totally me. Okay, so let me see if I can unpack what I really dug out of your introduction, Dov. Um,
While you do this, I will let this light a little bit less. So, okay, yes. Yes.
so you come into the space as a um, yeah, a fractal, right? A part of a larger whole, uh, and an element of this context that is inseparable in some way from the context itself.
Good enough.
And the opportunity here is to explore, you know, what happens, right? Explore the shit, so to speak, and to dig in.
Call it the
And
shift if you want.
what's that?
Yeah, if you don't like the word shit, you can say shift.
The shift, yeah, sure. Yeah, no, no. Shift is all right. Shit, I think, does it for me though.
Good.
And then for that, I think you bring in something I really appreciate. I recognize, right, this sense that the things that are not fully me, that I don't fully identify with, right, is where there's that opportunity for friction,
Yes.
right? And in the exploration of that friction, I can more fully identify with them and in some way become more whole. Is what I sort of recognize in that.
Yes. Again, not I become more whole, because as we said, it depends what you call I. This can become more whole. And the part of on this side of the camera, which is part of this whole, will again become more whole. But the goal is to bring this space to a place that's more whole.
Yeah, there's more wholeness, right? Yeah, I like that distinction, right? No, that they're just period. There is more wholeness. Like
Yes.
we have the opportunity to sort of manifest more unity, as you described it.
Which is what I said, which is what I meant when I said increase harmony in the world.
Yeah, there's the harmony. Yeah, cool. All right. So who am I, right? Yeah, it's funny, right? So I want to play with you, right? So if you're the universe, I'm the witness, right?
Witness. No, there's no witnesses. The universe is one. Like that's the thing of the Tao. The only thing that exists is the universe. You can't be a spectator.
Yeah. And yeah, it's funny. So embedded in the universe, right, is, yeah, and yet here I am as a witness, right?
As someone who plays the role of the witness,
Yeah, fair
even
enough.
if you are part of the universe.
Yeah, exactly. That's good enough. And what it is that I want to explore? Yeah, this notion of listening was what initially sort of popped into my head from a space of probably from a space of cheekiness, right? To have a conversation about listening seemed it gives right. You can't see in the beard, but there's a dimple in there, and I feel a twinkle in my
And
eye
I see it.
when I think about it, right?
And but in fact, what is it like? Why does speaking for you contradicts listening?
Why does speaking contradict listening? Why is there a polarity there? At a deeper level, I think there's something very worthy there, actually, of exploration.
Okay, I don't see it yet, so we have our first point of friction, which is good.
All right, there's work to do. And what makes that, what inspires me to move towards that topic, to move into that space of witness and in listening. Yeah, there's this weird sort of tension between like possibility and I don't know, manifestation, for a lack of a better word. And like, to contain space for possibility, is, for me personally, hard, right? Like, right, there's challenge in that, because
I don't
there's,
understand. So this
yeah,
is not that I don't agree. I don't understand.
okay.
You have to translate.
Oh. Yeah, so let me put it maybe a bit more on point. It's really hard for me to shut the fuck up, right? When I'm asked a question, I notice that there's almost always an answer there, right? That's, you know, that it seems like it's preloaded, right? That there's, well, it feels like it's a cognitive process. There's not any actual cognition going on there. So listening is, yeah, something that I notice I'm well served by working hard at, so to speak.
Okay. I still don't understand. I think it's too much high level. I'll tell you what's listening for me.
Okay.
Currently, I'm holding the baton de parole, the stick of talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm listening because you move your head and I see that. So I generate some sounds and I see the sounds resonate in the world. And I change the things I say as function of this.
Mm-hmm.
And not only this, I let my mouth run free. So I'm also listening to me. I'm not only listening to you.
Mm.
So I am listening to the interaction between these two people. And I have some influence on you, and I have a larger influence on me, on this person. But I am the listener of this. When I speak, I don't stop listening.
Mm.
I listen much stronger because as I am the driver, I should look at the road very carefully now. So if when you speak, I allow myself to drift off sometime, when I speak, I don't. When I speak, I'm much more alert because I hold more power in where this us is going. So, and this is why I don't understand why first, why is the dichotomy? Well, like why is this duality of speak, listen? And two, like why when you say I speak, I don't listen? So perhaps it's one, I don't know.
Mm.
This
Mm.
is something unclear to me.
Sure. It's an interesting question. I'm not quite sure. And I think this is, yeah. And that kind of is, in a nutshell, what I think why this topic sort of um, seems interesting to me, right? Because you bring up these two elements, right? That to me seem quite novel, right? The what I really like that you brought in is listening to the interaction rather than to you as an object, right? That I can really get behind and go, okay, oh, that really changes the scope and shape of things, the feel of the vibe. Like instantly the metaphor of music comes into mind, and that space of improvisation, right? As I'm playing, I'm listening and noticing the space in between the notes, right? Mm, mm, mm. Well, all right, so I'm on. So I think I'm there. I can get behind that.
So
That's
do you want
interesting.
to redefine your purpose of this talk?
Um, to redefine my purpose of this talk. Yeah, what is it that I want to explore? I'm not sure. And I think I'm okay with that.
Okay. But it's interesting because that's not what I asked. I didn't ask what's the new purpose. I just asked, do you want to define a new purpose?
To define a new purpose.
And want to define new purpose, natural answers are yes and no.
Yeah, I guess if nothing comes up, then that's a no.
Okay. And now what?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not quite sure. What emerges out of this space? I mean, everything, right?
I don't know. I'm like currently I'm not sure that I'm connected to your intention. That's why I'm asking. Like I'm not sure that I have the image of what you're looking for.
Okay. Yeah. So, which brings us back to the sort of macro perspective on the invitation for this call. Is the So this is my sort of creative practice that is dialogue, and what I'm trying to explore is the ability to or the possibility to sort of slip into this state of shared exploration of dialogos, where it's possible in our interaction to sort of step into a space where there is, I don't know, there's something, yeah, it's really hard to describe, but there's a sort of quality that comes from interaction where there's a greater insight that can emerge than just the insight that I have to bear and just the insight um, to come back to that point you said about listening to our interaction, right? So the interaction has the possibility of creating an essence of its own. And I guess what I'm
I have an idea. Can we do an experiment? I never did it, but I think it's interesting.
cool.
Can we in Tai Chi there's an exercise called sticking hands, where one person puts their hand and the other puts their hand on the top of the others with no weight. Now one leads and the other follows and tries not to put too much weight and not to lose it.
Yeah.
Do you want to try? We'll do it eyes open and with the camera on. I'll move and try to move your hand as my hand moves,
All right.
as if it's on it, and then we can switch and let's see what happens.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay, let's switch. If you want, we can switch hands as well.
Sure.
Whatever you want. Okay.
Hmm. All right.
Better?
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. 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 So what I noticed is that um, that initial sense of apprehension uh, that I was carrying is less. Hmm.
I can tell you a little bit about this exercise for me. Um, when I studied Tai Chi, first of all, like I think this was the most powerful listening exercise. And two is that when you do it, um, the distinction between someone who listens and someone who acts is very fluid. Because when I move my hand and you're the former listener, I move it at your speed. My intention is not to lose you and not to challenge you too much and not to bore you. So my talking, if you want, is is a listening action. And at some point when you do this, you lose who does what.
Hmm.
So it becomes a flow of two people. It doesn't. It's not. No, there's no passive active. There's no yin yang. I don't know what you want to call it.
Mhm.
It's one action of one thing that is two people.
Mhm. Yeah, the distinction between who is moving and who is being moved sort of blurs.
Yeah,
We sort of find ourselves in a space in between them.
yeah, and the dance becomes a dance of the surface between these two.
Hmm. And this reminds me of something I'm not particularly familiar with, but was introduced to me a few years ago: contact improvisation.
Oh yeah, 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 wonderful.
Yeah. This sort of dance, sort of play space of, all right, in the space of us being in contact with each other, where is that motion, and sort of what wants to unfold in that contact between the two of us.
Mhm.
Yeah. So to unpack that analogy, um, with words, what I'm interested in exploring is what is that motion that sort of wants to unfold that's in between the two of us. If our words were our bodies,
Yeah. So,
if that
and
makes any
still, and
sense.
again, no, no, it, I don't understand the what. What wants to unfold is what wants to unfold. There's no deeper answer to this. Like, and that's really something I don't get. There's no label to this thing that wants to unfold.
Mhm.
And not only this, it's ever changing. At some point, it's like a game where you feel that I dominate and you want to dominate back. And at some point, it becomes something else. And then it becomes cooperation. And then it becomes, I don't know, any label you put on it is what it is.
Mhm. Yeah, and then we want to
So,
make pancakes, and then we
yes,
want to take a
so
nap.
part of the interaction was, by the way, that when you had your glass of water and you drank, I felt thirsty.
Hmm.
It was part of our interaction here.
Right.
We didn't verbalize it, but it was, for me at least, like it was a very concrete one,
Hmm.
and not less important than the words that we use.
Hmm. So again, getting back to that idea of this space between, right? And I guess what I, I guess what I'm curious about is, so what helps to sort of tune in to that space between?
No, the, for me, what helps is being me in this moment. So I can describe to you all the history of this. Hold on, I just have a whiteboard and I don't want to erase it. When you ask, you ask from what, like, what do you want to know? Did you want tips and tricks, or do you want to know what path did I make, or like what's...
Yeah, so all of the above, I guess. So what I notice is right now is that my attention is uh, very much like a ray, right? It has this directionality towards it that is very focused on like you as an object, right? And like I said, as me as a subject, right? And very much this, but very much this dyadic, right? The start and finish, right? And what I'm trying to figure out is how to sort of better um, shift my attention into not just object, but also the context and the relationship that flows between the two.
Okay. But what I'm trying to understand is what's my role in this dialogue? Like what do you want from this thing? Like what role do you want me to play, if you want?
Yeah, what role do I want you to play? Well, so what I noticed is that in our interaction, it seems like you're holding that space with a quality that I find attractive. And so I guess maybe the narrative version is probably a good way to go, right? So what is the way in which you come to have this orientation that that sort of contains this quality that attracts me?
Okay, I don't know what attracts you. I'll try to answer. Tell me if I'm on if I resonate with your question or not. The format that we held yesterday is a format where I come totally empty. So like it's not my only intention is to spend time with people that I find, as you call it, attractive, that I find interesting, that I find, that I can play with. And that's it. There's no point that I'm trying, there's no question I'm trying to answer. There's no, like, even the time for me is arbitrary. So we set it for 90 minutes. Okay, so there is only this limit of 90 minutes that we probably don't pass more than that. But other than that, anything can happen. Okay. And I think failure is welcome. Okay, so one, there's no such thing as failure, but two, if there is, let's try to fail in a spectacular way. So there's no, I try to let go of intentionality.
Yeah, which feels like a paradox, right? I notice.
Yes, but if I may use the but word, if it comes, it's welcome. So it's I'm not trying to resist intentionality. Like I can tell you with my teams, right? So with my teams, sometimes I feel that I really know what they should do to make things better. So I look at this me who knows this and smile. Okay. Because I see this ego whatever me that knows as part of the big group. Like I am playing with a group, and this player with the group has big ideas and certainty about something, as all the rest do as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So the intention is to let go, to realize that what I want just like a cell in my body wants something.
Yeah. So I, the notion of inclusion sort of is what I recognize in that. So as you describe this, having the answer, right? You, what I hear you bringing in is this taking note and including that in the I don't know the pantheon of self.
Well, too complicated. You'll have to
Yeah, I
translate.
know. I don't know where it came from. I'm not sure I quite know. I understand what I'm talking about right now,
Okay.
but it's
Well,
what came up.
so does it make sense for you as even if the image is abstract, does it make sense to you? Does it answer the question?
Yeah. So the things that you bring up that I recognize is this uh, an openness to possibility, and this just sort of the space of we'll see. What I notice right now that the embracing of the messiness, right? So
Yes.
you said that failure is welcome and doesn't exist. And cognitively, I go, yeah, totally. And like viscerally, I go like, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know if I actually want that.
Okay. And it's okay not to want that. As you look up now, you see someone who doesn't want that. It's okay. And you can love that person. There's no problem. But I think this is another thing, is the splitting of the actor and the observer, and putting your intention on the observer more than the actor.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you said putting your attention or intention.
It's both. It's intention for me. It's
Yeah.
more than attention. Yet. So when I talk, I try to be more of the observer of me,
Mm-hmm.
and this than to be the me that talks.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kurt Vonnegut has a nice analogy. He talks about he writes books with really tons of characters, whatever, and he said, I am like a puppet master who has a rubber band for a string. So I have no real control of them. I can move them a little bit, but not control them. So if you want, the observer is the puppet master of the speaker. So he can influence him, but not control him.
Mm. Yeah. I like that elasticity, right? Like, yeah, I can pull, but sometimes it stretches, and sometimes when I pull a little bit, it stretches more. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And when you become a control freak or that, like if now as a puppet master I have total control of the speaker, I don't have any attention span to look around.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And when I recognize that, it's because I'm sort of, yeah, because I'm micromanaging, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. Too much attention going to the precise motion of that pinky, and
An
nothing.
exercise I did for people, like to some people think they control what they say. And the exercise that I devised for this is I want you now for 5 minutes. Every time you say a sentence, when you start with the first word, write down the last word that you're going to say in this sentence. You can't.
All right. End up with a lot of silence and a lot of blank pages, I can imagine.
Okay, because like any sentence that is not one word, and sometimes even this, is a chain of associations. And associations not only of here, but also of what's coming out. Like the way I'll finish this sentence depends on your movements while I do that.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm saying, when you talk, you listen.
Yeah, and I can definitely recognize this space of often being surprised about what comes out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Right. Go like, oh wow, I just said that in a room full of people. Okay, yeah. Well, here we are. And now what?
Nothing.
Hmm.
So here we are, and now what?
Yeah. I mean, to quote someone had a recent conversation with, nothing. Hmm.
So I'll
Yeah,
leave you thinking. I'll take a glass of water and I'll be back.
sure.
Cheers.
Cheers. Hydrate. Yeah. It's funny, right? What's so interesting is I so rarely find myself in this space of sort of quasi vertigo that I'm experiencing right now, which is this sort
Yes.
of like aimlessness, right?
How deep are you into the Taoism and the Book of Tao and stuff like this?
So I've read a couple translations. One from God, what the hell's this dude's name? Um, one from Byron Katie, which is sort of her like riff on the Tao, not so much as a translation. And then her husband actually translated it. I think his name is Michael something or other. But how deep am I? I mean, it
Yeah.
depends on the day and the weather, so to speak, right? As to
So yeah, my in fact, my shift, if you want, came out of this book, and I was in a very sensitive point in my life, like a separation from my ex, whatever.
mm,
And her parents gave me a year before this book. Said like, I don't know out of where, like it's a, but they say we saw it in a shop, we thought you'd like it. And I would read the book every day on the way to work, just one poem every day, like it's you know. And when I got used to the poems, like just randomly, and it was really powerful stuff, like the understanding of like it's not a philosophical thing. It's a real. when you open your eyes, yesterday, yeah, there's a lot of things to say, you see. So I have few people who want to speak through the same mouth. It's hard. Um, for me, the Taoist viewpoint, way to see the world, again, not in a philosophical, in an experiential way, is that really there is just one thing, and really there is no meaning. Okay, so people are dead, people are alive, you know, empires rise and fall, doesn't matter. It's all waves on one ocean of water.
Change in motion is the what comes up.
Okay, and when you realize this and you start seeing this, it's shattering. Like it's there's something happens to you, and then like the second step is to realize that everything that you see is an illusion that is labeled. Like when now I say I see Jeremy there, what I do is I carve out of this wood of everything something, and I give it a name that I already have in my dictionary, and it doesn't allow me to see you.
Yeah, then you're interfacing with the concept of me, so to
Yes.
speak.
And yesterday I told a story. I said it briefly. When I did eye contact, at some point, the skin of people started to change. And it's not an illusion. And I'll tell you why I know, because I saw exactly this change in skin tone a year later in a TED talk of someone who created a change microscope. And now with the change microscope, the demo that he showed is Christian Slater, I think, playing Batman asleep. And when he puts the camera, the skin of Christian Slater becomes red, red, green, exactly like I saw when I looked at people in the eye contact at some point, and I start to see it pulsating. And the reason I think that I see it pulsating is because I let go of the definition of the skin.
So not, and let me check to see if I get what you mean. Not so much seeing it as a boundary, but as almost a membrane. It's the idea that sort of.
Not to see it as nothing. Let's talk about people. When I know that you're evil, I will not see any change in your evilness.
Right. Yeah.
When I know that you're good, I won't see any hints that you're not good. When I know nothing about you, I will see a lot of changes all the time. So what I know blocks me from seeing.
Yeah.
Okay, and when you're in a state where you allow yourself to know nothing, suddenly you see much more. Like you see things with the teams and people you work with society, whatever. And if you can allow yourself not to give it name, then it will vibrate. Once you put a name on it, it will freeze.
Yeah. And I can see it's so funny, right? As you trying to talk about this is so funny. So when you say try to put a name on it, I think of both of the state, but also the what is being viewed, right? So if I can, so there's a chair over yonder, right? As I put a name on it of chair, right, it becomes this static thing, becomes fixed in place.
Yeah.
And all of the potential of the object sort of disappears to some extent.
But not only this, when I was a kid, I saw like on TV a physics show about the elasticity of definitions like the three states of gas, liquid, and solid.
Mhm.
So things that are solid can be liquid, and the thing is, when you see mountain rocks, you see that there's drops in, like it takes a solid rock thousands of years, but it's liquid. In fact, only it's liquid in a very, very slow form.
Hmm.
So you can wait for I don't know what 100 years, and you will see it move one, like I don't know what deci, well, it's like micron,
Sure.
but it's liquid.
Right. It's in a state of motion.
Yeah, and everything is in a state of motion. And what I'm saying is, when you put a chairness on the chair, you stop it from being liquid. You
Yeah,
deny it changing form.
yeah, exactly. It's like I
It
put
changes
this.
form all the time. Just wait a million years and you will see a puddle on the floor.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I put this frame of reference that is this concept of chair there, and then instead of seeing this thing that is, maybe a combination of parts that is actually, and that's why I think this idea of potential is interesting to me, because then it sort of frees me from how do I use a chair.
Yeah, but even there's no combination of parts. I'll show you something. Okay, so you see this bottle. So let's say it's a bottle for the sake of argument. Can you tell me the parts of the bottle? So it has this screwiness, whatever, and it has the neck, and it has the body, and it has the label, right? But it has no left part and right part, right? Now, can you cut it in your eyes? Why when you cut, why do you cut the label and not cut it like this?
Right?
Because you cut according to functionality.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you say parts of the chair, again, you cut because you know that when you constructed it, you had two pieces of wood
Yeah,
and you had a screw. So you have three parts. But same, you can now cut it with your eyes any way you want. It doesn't
it's still
matter
just
how you
smaller and
constructed it.
smaller concepts.
Not only smaller, also different.
Hmm.
Like you can look at the chair as having two parts, all of the skin and all of the inside. You can look at the chair as having two parts, the left and the right. It's all mind games.
Hmm.
And also the chair and the floor are one. You use your imagination's knife to cut the chair from the floor.
Yeah, to segregate.
Okay. And you did this, you do this, we do this, well, I do this, whatever, because I think we are functionality driven. Our brain is not constructed to perceive reality, but to help us survive.
Yeah, for sure.
And so why not? Survival is fun, right? But don't believe everything that you see to be true, because your brain doesn't show you reality at all.
No,
It
no,
it
absolutely.
shows you what are the things that will help you survive, and what are the things that threaten your survival.
In the best case scenario, I'm seeing an icon of reality. I'm seeing some form of symbol that I can interface with that
Yeah, but even this not.
improves my probability of survival.
Yes, okay, as an individual, and also, by the way, as a species, right?
Hmm.
So all of this is the that's if the model is correct, evolutionary an evolutionary process that helped us survive as a species,
Yeah,
right? So because like when we see and we just see lots of wow colors and a tiger eats us, then probably we won't be able to.
yeah, yeah. So this is the I forget who wrote it, the case against reality, right? That it's almost the probability that we're seeing reality is next to is almost impossible. Um, exactly for that reason. And so there's, which puts me in again, I'm in this space of sort of paradox, right? So there's a utility of seeing object of putting my frame around it, of glass. This is glass, and then I know how to interface with glass. So there's a utility in there, and there's an overdrive of that. And I think this is kind of what you're pointing at is, yeah, there's a utility there, there's a functionality there that, and there's more to it than that, so to speak.
I don't know, more or less for me, a glass doesn't exist. You know, a glass exists in the matrix. Okay. Okay, so we have a common language that allows us to function, but really there's no such thing as a glass or a bottle. There's no, if you could strip your eyes from this thing, you will see that you are one, as we started this talk.
Yeah, that it's all just the change in motion. Yeah, and so I noticed some form of like, it's so funny here. I like this conversation because I find myself in this weird role that I don't occupy in. But in relation to you, I find myself having this experience of like apprehension and fear of sort of letting go of the concepts and definitions.
Oh, this is the vertigo that you were talking about, right?
Yeah. Of this really experiencing this, oh yes, but then I could get into this space where, what if I don't, which seems laughable in its like sort of probability. Like what if my brain doesn't have the definition of a chair in it? Like what oh, and what like what in God's name would I do if I looked at a chair and I didn't think and see chair before?
I want to show you something.
Would
Okay,
I
so
know how to sit down?
as I said yesterday, I am drawing. So, and like one thing that allowed me to realize this, if you want, is a teacher that taught me how to see and to see empty spaces. So, like this is an example of a drawing. See that?
Mm-hmm.
And you see, like what is drawn is the empty spaces, is not the plant. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So you draw the nothingness, like the arbitrary shapes, and your brain picks the plant from there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this is the idea. And if you want to draw like life, the best way to draw it is to draw reality and not the symbols. And to draw reality, you have to let go of the symbols when you draw.
Yeah. Yeah, because because what I recognize there is that the symbols impart this sense of meaning in such a way that well, like you said, like we talked, it fixes my perception in a way that becomes less than fluid.
Yeah, like it's the some optical illusions where you complete lines that are not there to see a closed form.
Yeah.
Right, like you have two apples like this, and the color of this apple is exactly like that one. But if you have you totally see that these are two objects, even if the color here is the same.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as I put my frame on it, that defines it in such a way as sort of anchors my relationship to it, and that loses the free space to sort of move in between and yeah, and to create a different possibility in some way.
I have to go in 10 minutes.
Okay.
So we have 10 minutes.
All right. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. What I think is so funny is what makes this so like delightful to me is to find myself in like the such a position that I don't yeah, I guess there's a novelty to it, to find myself in this in the space of interaction with you, like really embodying this sensation that I don't normally associate with, but it's very, very much alive right now.
Can you say more?
Yeah. So, well, like I mentioned, this idea of the attachment to the concept, right? Um, so let's just say, right, my attachment to some concepts is always there, and I don't find myself in. I don't find myself very aware of them, right? So I'm aware of the ones that I'm aware of, and those I can see, those are very obvious, don't fall into that hole, so to speak. And in this space, I find myself in other holes that I don't normally recognize. Oh, and that I'm in that hole. I go, oh shit, I'm in a bigger
It's
hole. Oh
what you
crap.
signed for, no?
Huh?
Like that's so. If you're surprised about this, then why did you schedule this call? Like
Um,
it sounds like what you signed up for.
Yeah, totally. And I guess there's an element of delight actually uh, in that realization, right? Um, there's an element of like, oh shit. Um, there's this quote on this horrible, horrible movie. It says, "Nothing so liberates the heart as when a fool awakens from his folly." Right? And so I have this sensation of like, oh shit, there's folly there. Oh wow. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so to contrast that again from the sense of apprehension and fear, right? So there's an element of myself that is really like deathly afraid of this, of what turns out to be this very lighthearted and energized state of realizing, oh no, like oh folly there, and which seems like really like laughable, and yet there it is.
So I'll tell you another source for you if you don't know him. The best, I, I don't know, Taoist teacher that I met is a stand-up comedian called Stephen Wright. Do you know
Even
him?
right. Okay.
Like he said, for example, he said, before you judge someone, you should walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you judge them, you're a mile away and you have their shoes. Okay, so like he takes a situation and he totally breaks it apart.
Mm. Yeah. Mm, mm,
You know,
mm.
he said like another thing. I went to a general store, but I couldn't buy anything specific. Like a lot of he has one-liners
Yeah,
that totally shake your reality.
yeah, yeah. I really feel the need to cap them with that rim shot. Yeah.
Or another one, like he has like a few things with shoes. Interesting. He says, um, once I had no shoes on, but then I passed by someone who has no feet. So I asked him, "Hey, do you have any shoes that you don't use?" Okay, and do you understand why I give these as examples?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like a Cohen, right? Uh, there's an
Yeah, Cohen.
element.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's an element of absurdity and yeah.
In fact, and it's related to the talk yesterday. He builds a very coherent world,
Mhm.
and when you believe in it, he breaks it
Yeah. There's the
with,
subversion.
with a similarly coherent power.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Yeah.
So look him up. Sometimes when I read him, even if I know already, because I can't contain all of this, I read and I just burst out laughing. Like when I read him, I try not to drink anything because like it happened to me a few times. And we can talk perhaps next time about like I have, I have a lot of clear viewpoints of human behavior, and I have a model for what is laughter, which is
Hmm.
really interesting.
Yeah. I will be interested in that.
So that's the we'll see. Does it help you? This exchange does it help you in your quest? Does it answer your initial request to talk about listening?
I mean, so the request about listening is a bit of a placeholder. I think it's definitely been an interesting exchange. And what I guess I want to spend more time in the exploration of this, of what is it that I'm afraid of in this space um, of what turns out to be this lightheartedness, right? So, yeah, and I think I already know the answer, right? I think it's going to be one way, and it's not. Yeah,
So what's the answer? Give me a clue.
yeah. So I think this experience of sort of you know finding myself in a different hole than the one I expected to be in, right? This realization of some form of wrongness or of making a mistake, as it's commonly called. I think it's going to be one way. I think it's going to have a set of consequences, lead me to a space, and it's going to be like W, X, Y, and Z. And so, in the way in which I look at the chair and I have a label for it, and I put it in that frame, and it becomes fixed. I have this vision in my head of how it's going to be, and I put a label on it, and it becomes fixed. And then
So you
that,
prefer to stay in the matrix, like
yeah,
if
well, I guess so. I don't know if I prefer to be in the matrix. What I find is that because I've put that label on it, I have a fixed relationship with it, and that fixed relationship influences my decision making and actions in such a way that prevents the fluidity that I'm actually experiencing if I can lean into it.
so my advice to you would be, you don't have to let go of labels. You have to practice being able to let go of labels.
Yeah.
It's a viewpoint that you can put in and out. I I'll tell you a secret. When I cross the road here, I if a car comes, I will not say, "Wow, that's nice." I will jump. No, the practice is to put this on when it's needed. No, like one phrase that I wrote once on LinkedIn, like I thought, anything that you do, if it's a capability, it's an advantage, and if it's a habit, it's a disadvantage.
Mm.
Like eh, practice being kind, practice being cruel, practice being aimless, practice being aimful. Master these and juggle them as you need. You don't need to like the fact that you can see the chair without its chairness doesn't mean that you have to do this all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That.
Okay, so like that's the advice that I would give you, the homework that you, I feel like I'm coaching someone. So like the homework is to practice this, is to now for 5 minutes have no labels.
Mm.
Now for 5 minutes label everything. You'll go crazy, by the way. Like
Mm.
like a thing like this. You know how many labels there are? Like look inside here and the shape here and this shape and all the letters. Each of the letters has a label, by the way.
Mm.
And all like practice. Why not for 5 minutes and then let go?
Yeah, switch gears.
Yeah. But I for sure when I coach, And again, like coach is a strange word. I don't know what it means. But when I'm in this space of transformation, I'm trying to totally be have no intention. Like if someone is now suffering, it's okay. Why not?
Mm.
And if someone is now cruel to someone else, it's okay. Because otherwise you become a savior.
Mm. Yeah. So what I recognize is that is the desire. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. So what I want to do is I just want to get in the pit, right, rather than pull somebody out of the pit. Then we can just be in the pit. That's all right.
So as we know now, there is no such thing as a pit. A pit is a symbol.
Mm.
Even better.
Mm.
And by the way, you said it's okay. This is an exercise, a coaching exercise that I created. Okay, so I'll give you even like I hope I won't be late for my next appointment. I'll do it fast. One truth in life that I realized from this space is that whenever you accept something, it changes, and whenever you resist something, it stays.
Mm.
Okay. So, for example, this is why people most of the time suffer and are not happy, because when you suffer, you resist suffering, so it stays. And you try not to look at it and to change it, so it stays. And when you're happy, you accept it, so it changes. Okay. So accept this as an axiom for what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Okay. Now, let's use this. So if you are in a place, if you say, now I'm suffering, okay, so say, well, now I'm
Now
suffering.
I'm suffering.
Yeah. Add to it the phrase, and it's okay.
Mm. And it's okay.
Okay. And now feel how it feels in your body, like saying, I am suffering and it's okay. Does it resonate, true or not?
I am suffering and it's okay. Yeah. So there's a softening.
But if it doesn't resonate, if you feel that it's not true, then you say, I am suffering and I don't want to suffer, and it's okay to want not to suffer.
Right. Right.
Okay.
So
So find where you can say in your state, it's okay without dissonance.
right. To find
Once you
the
do this, it will change.
yeah. 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 Oh, that's interesting. To sort of scale it up. Wow. To continuously include the not okayness in the
And see what is your current state, which is okay.
mm.
No, I want to commit suicide, and it's okay. No, it's not okay. I shouldn't commit suicide, and it's okay that I shouldn't. Is it okay? No, I hate it that people don't allow me to commit suicide. Is it okay to hate it that people? Yes, this is okay. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Let's feel that.
Mm. Yeah. Find the space where something is okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, thanks for your time, Dov.
Thanks
It's
for
been good
yours.
spitting
It's a
around.
pleasure. Yeah,
Oh,
let's do it again sometime, as you wish.
cool. Um,
I recommend to you
mhm.
to read, like, I don't know all the translations of the Book of Tao. I think they're too complicated for me. Like, I try to read like heavy English translations, and there's too much.
Mm.
There's two translations that resonate with me deeply. One is the Hebrew one, and I'll tell you something about this. And the other one is the one by Peter Merrill. You know, the Agile Tao.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Agile Tao for me is a beautiful book. Like I do a podcast about it. If you
Mhm.
want, you can hear it. But about the Hebrew one, I know someone who's a student of the person who did the Hebrew one, and he tried to do an English one, and I have the PDF. So I can send you this PDF. And what's beautiful about it is that because it's Israeli, it's very simple. Like there's no fancy English there.
Okay.
And it's written by a person like he's a Buddhist monk who is very humble.
Okay.
So if you want, I can send it to you. I think it's a fun read.
Cool. Drop me a line.
Awesome. I wish you well.
All right. Thanks for your
Bye.
time, attention, and energy. Be good to yourself, huh?
Be good. As now you know I am. It's not a bye
Safe
bye.
journeys. Wow, that was interesting. So, like always, leave a comment at some point in which you had a thought or a feeling or a physical sensation and timestamp that beast. I appreciate your time, attention, and energy, and be good to yourself as well. Fishes.